So, welcome to the part about working with emotional first aid and creating resilience for people involved in disaster relief of all kinds. And this image comes from the island of Lesbos.
Yeah, and that is in Greece. And probably most of you know that there has been a lot of refugees coming, especially in 2015-16, but also still are unfortunately coming from different wars in countries in the world. And coming to this island, crossing the sea from Turkey, it's not that far, but the journey has become very, of course, dangerous. So people come with traumas, both from their country of war and then also from the journey, as well as staying in a cramped refugee camp, what with all those things that it consists of when it comes to living conditions. But when we came for something else.
Yeah, we came there to help the actual volunteers because there is something called volunteer or NGO burnout, which can happen in as short as time as 3 days if you don't sleep and take care of yourself. And we met, I think her name was Maria, down in the cafe in the harbor, and she told us, "Oh, I'm glad you're coming here to help the aid workers because they seem a bit stressed." At one time, a boat had been coming to the shore with women. You have the smallest children in the middle, and then you have the women, and then you have the men. And a lot of the small children during the passing, might go into hypothermia and they will have blue lips and they need care. And the volunteers were so revved up that when the boat hit the shore, they would find a mother standing with her baby and they would just run up and say something, "Give me the baby, I have to save the baby," and grab the baby and run to a doctor. But for the mother standing in the raft, that was kind of a shocker. And they were yelling at people out of good intentions, but it's so vital to keep cool and mind your own resilience and state when you're going to be working in these situations.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the places where we found out another, what we call the 3-letter abbreviation technique, what we call T and a smile. That sometimes is actually the most important, just to be there, be calm, and receive people in a way that is not as stressful, because they have been through all that stress. Nobody needs more of that. So, and of course, not everybody was like that, but that was the reason we came, actually, and to help the aid workers to relax also in this very difficult situation.
And that's why we call it find, calm, and pass it on. I mean, that's the reason we have that as the motto. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we continued working because we got invited by an organization called Kitrinos Healthcare, a UK-based organization of volunteer medical doctors, nurses, psychiatrists, and they directly saw, especially the founder, Dr. Siana Mahrouf Shafi, that so many of the refugees, they came with what they thought was their heart problem or breathing, feeling that they couldn't breathe, that they had problems with their lungs, but they were actually traumatized and stressed. So she asked us to come and establish something with the TTT, because she knew us since before in this work. And that's what we did. So we had a specific part of their medical clinic where we helped the refugees and the staff with their stress and traumas with TTT and self-havening.
And you can hear about that in the audiobook or read about it in the book. This is just to give you a general impression of how these tools can be extremely useful and helpful in all these situations of disaster relief. So we have another colleague, Kristen Miller, psychologist, working affiliated with ACEP, the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. And she was working a lot with these techniques during the California forest fires.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been year after year. She started in 2018, specifically because then it was around her community where she lived. And what she found very helpful was that this technique, or this way of using tapping, compared to the one she had learned before, which is called TFT, thought field therapy, with the TTT, that it was so easy to share and to see that, to be where people were and to be where people were gathering when their houses burnt down, and just offering these kind of ways of calming down at least a little bit. Of course, it's very difficult in that situation, but you need it because you need to have your mind clear and be able to take new decisions. And also all these fire brigade staff, all the first responders who had to do this horrible work, and even, you know, when they were evacuating people from the towns and cities. So she found it very helpful with the approach that we have in sharing these techniques.
Yeah, it's simple, it's fast, it's easy, and you don't need to talk about things. It can be done content free.
And
So
you can do it in groups, and that's also one of the fantastic things that we have mentioned before. And then there are other refugee camps where we have been active through somebody. So this was a friend in Sweden. He has an organization called Sudan Volunteer Organization, because he himself came as a refugee to Sweden. His sister Jada is still in the camp in Chad, where so many of the Darfurian refugees still are. Some of them came in 2004, 2005. And she wanted to help the communities in the refugee camp. So she had a short training from another colleague who came there to visit. And then she continued, also again, offering some tea, sitting down, and then doing this tapping. So she has this circle of friends who now know how to do it. And they have been going to the other camps also.
Yeah. And refugees in many places. We've been active in up to 30 countries by now. So, I mean, we have seen the results over all these years, and we stay in touch with people over years. So we do know that it is sustainable and that the results are permanent when people do these, use these techniques. So another refugee camp are refugees in Uganda, and Bidi Bidi, one of the biggest refugee camps there. And this is working with Pastor John Abonyo.
Yeah. And these refugees are from South Sudan, the youngest nation of the world, where unfortunately there has been a lot of violence after the independence. So there are now approximately 800,000 South Sudanese refugees in Uganda, where they settle, and it looks like villages. So if you come there and don't know it's a refugee camp, it's not sure you would see it as a refugee camp. So there, Pastor John has been doing workshops and also again teaching others, and here printing some of our materials and to distribute, and specifically with pictures and the local language, so that anybody can, you know, remember and help their family or others. So that's how we want this to do, isn't it? I mean, it's one teach 5 and then the other one teach 5, and that way you can spread it to many.
Yep. And another place where we've been coming back over the years, over and over and over again, and where we have one of our collaborators with his back to us here in the image, Germando Baratti. He has been working with BVS, a center for children liberated from armed forces, both former child soldiers or sex slaves, that have been using, because he's also a great musician, he has been using together with them music and dancing and call and response, which actually enhances and simplifies working with large groups in a very lighthearted way with great results. And we've also done a study there of the effects of TTT with these kids.
Yeah, Germando, he has been doing these TTT workshops all over Eastern Congo, a very, very difficult part of the world, actually, unfortunately. So that's brilliant. And that's one person. That's why we always say that we come when we have trainings, or like now you are participating in this online training, that one person, it might be you, who can, you know, take these techniques and bring it to so many places, because it doesn't require too much, you know. You always have enough. That's what we say. You always have enough to do it.
Yeah. And some people have been trained really, really short and have had amazing outreach to hundreds and thousands of people. So it's impressive. Now, here's a project in Nepal after the hurricane where over, I think, 2,600 or 700 people were dislocated from their homes. And we got Santosh Bandari, who was in touch with us and asked to do an outreach there. So he took volunteers and traveled to the area and raised tents and started teaching TTT, and also continued in schools after.
Yeah, and he actually learned the TTT from another colleague from the US who came to assist after the earthquake in Nepal in 2015. I think it was 2015. And from there, and then when these landslides after the hurricane and these houses were destroyed, he contacted us to, because he said, wow, people are really so stressed. Even when they just hear the rain, they get scared. So even they have to have something to lower that stress level to be able to continue their lives in a decent way.
So as you can see, we've been in many, many places, and we have feedback, and we have done studies, and it all boils down to, we're all human. We all need this. There's no difference between being a humanitarian aid worker or a volunteer or a doctor or any other person in the area. It doesn't matter who you are, if you are one of the refugees or survivors. We need to reduce and maintain low stress levels for our health, for our well-being, and also because we all affect each other. And there's a saying in Kinyarwanda, which is turikumwe.
Yeah, and that means we are here together, meaning that there's always things that we need to do together, but I'm here because of you. We are dependent on each other. So that's how we see this. And this picture is from a refugee camp of West Saharians in the south of Algeria, but there are also some students from Sweden in this group who came to see the living conditions of the refugees there, and also sharing this TTT as much as possible to different groups. So this Turikumwe is our leading star, that whatever we have, we share it, because we think the world becomes better if we see it that way.
Yep. This is to ease suffering and prevent violence, because people who suffer can become very reactive. So what we want to say to you is, check out the chapters, check out the information, look at the studies, look at the material, get in touch with us if you have a project. And remember, there's always enough. You can always make a difference with this. And one last word of caution here. Some of the most seasoned people that are humanitarian aid workers that we have talked to, who have made it through all this by having stamina and having low stress levels, they might not see the need for this. And some of the younger people who haven't been in these situations because they can't imagine what a stress it is, they might not even see a need for this. But for everybody who has come to that point where stress becomes too much and mistakes start being made and relationships disintegrate or humor disappears, they have tried this and they have found that it creates such a great difference. So try to be prophylactic and use this even if you're not there yet. Look at it not only for the sake of you, but for the sake of everybody else, because you will inspire them if you use it.
Yeah, and that's so true. And again, you can make a big difference just by sharing this technique. So thank you so much and we'll meet in the next session.
Yep. Enjoy the materials.
Yes.